further ado, Eric Perez.
Check, check. All right. Can you guys hear me well?
Yeah. Yes.
All right. So I want to thank Steve and Barbara so much, guys, for starting this group and for gathering us here and for inviting me to come speak to all of you today. This is a real honor for me. I'm at this beach all the time. I live nearby, but this is something kind of new for me in terms of being able to address such an awesome group. So I want to thank you all also for coming here today. I hope I can offer up something over the next several minutes that you can take with you and that maybe give you a shift in your mind and perhaps even more importantly a shift of your heart, and that's what I'm really hoping for. I'd like to open up first by just thanking God for guiding us so that we could be here together today in a world that's going through so many shifts and a world that seems to be so out of balance that like-minded people can find one another so that we don't feel so alone. And it's very easy to feel alone with the world going the way it is. And I know that oftentimes spiritual people, there is a sense of being isolated. And I'm not sure what the psychological and the emotional dynamic is that makes spiritual people often feel alone, but we're not alone. And I hope that we can continue to gather like this, whether it's here, whether it's in a church, wherever it is, that we can get together with people who support love, who support compassion, who want to cultivate wisdom and a strong spiritual discipline so that we can take this world back, because the world belongs to those who love the most. So I'm hoping that that's what can happen and that we could do our part here today. So my name is Eric Noel Perez. I'll give you just a brief history. I said this, how many of you were in the Bahamas on the cruise? Okay, so some of you. So some of you may hear some repeat stuff, so hopefully you don't remember that I said it last time, some of it. But I'm an English teacher in Central Islip High School, and I started a club there some years ago called Soul Club. It's an acronym, SOUL, stands for Sending Out Universal Love. And I actually have one of my former students here today, Andrea, and a couple of my fellow teachers, and my sister from another mister, my brother from another mother over there. So, but I started on this spiritual path, and I know everybody here has their own story. My brief history is that I started as a boy, and I did feel a little different. Not better, not worse, just different. And sought God out and pursued God and had experiences. This is called the Whitelight 1111 group. My family thinks it's always funny when they hear that, because 11 was always my number as a child. And I would wake up and at 11:11. I could fall asleep at 8 o'clock at night and then open my eyes, it'd be 11:11 p.m. I'd be in room 11 in college. My birthday is February 22nd, 222, so it's a repetition of those numbers. And it wasn't until a few years ago that I realized that this was actually a thing. That 11:11, that there was something, there was a sacred mathematics. So when I met Steve, who is just an amazing guy, and a beautiful soul to have connected with, and Barbara, I realized, wow, this is a thing. And there are people who are thinking this way also. So that's why I think I'm here, because they were generous enough to share their platform with me. So I forgot my spiritual path, and I turned it in for, beer and girls, I guess, if I'm being honest. And I was in college and pursued, and there was always still that call in the back of my mind, but I didn't really pursue it actively. But I do remember feeling disconnected because of that. And then I guess about 15 years ago, I was in a friend's room, and he had a tape of a recitation of the Bhagavad Gita. And some of you are nodding your head. This is a good group to be in. I don't have to explain usually, but the Bhagavad Gita is the perennial book of wisdom from India. And it was written a few thousand years ago. It was a book that Albert Einstein read daily and said that it was the highest region of thought he had ever entered. So there's a lot of credence to the Bhagavad Gita. But the moment I heard it, I felt like I had heard it before. And I don't know if that I heard it in a past life, or I don't know if it was just resonating with my soul at that moment. But I knew that I had found what I was looking for. And the only way to explain the experience was, it was like when you first fall in love. There's, nobody can convince you otherwise that this is not the person for you. When you feel it, you feel it. And I felt it that day. And that was about 15, 16 years ago, and since then I've just pursued this path, and it's brought me here to be with, an awesome group of my brothers and my sisters. So this past Saturday at the Holistic Center for Soulful Living, where I met Steve, where he teaches meditation, we watched the movie The Matrix. Anybody here who's seen The Matrix? Okay. If you haven't seen The Matrix, we're going to do the event again. So if you stay connected with Steve, or if you follow me on Facebook, Eric Noel Perez, it'll be publicized again. But the movie The Matrix, I did want to open with that experience because it ties into what I wanted to talk to you for a little bit today. The movie The Matrix is about what's real and what is not real. The plot of the movie is that we're all part of an interactive virtual reality, and that every human being is actually, since the moment of birth, we've been grown by machines, that we're not actually born anymore, we're created, and they were hooked up to these machines, and so that in order to keep us enslaved, we're put into a virtual world. Our minds wander around this, but that it's not actually happening. And it's about control, the movie, and it's about, identity. But what I love about the movie is not just the metaphor behind it, but that in the past several decades, quantum physics, real cutting-edge science, Einstein probably one of the fathers of it, and then there's Oppenheimer, there's these other great thinkers. They've really discovered some things that help support the truth and the premise that's reflected in the movie The Matrix. And one of those real basic essential truths that's sometimes hard to grasp, but perhaps not in this group, they discovered, physicists, that when they split the atom, which they thought at first could never be broken, and then of course they split it open, and then they found nucleus and electrons and protons and neutrons revolving, and then they split those, and then they split what came after that, and they found strings, infinitesimally small energetic strings, and then they split those, and they found these tiny small, 1 trillionth of the head of a pin, energy sacks, which they dubbed quarks. They kept splitting, because what they wanted to find was the God particle. In other words, what was the most basic element of creation? What are things made of? What are we made of? What is this ground made of? What is the air made of? Mountains, metal, water, fire. And what they discovered was that at the basis of all creation were photons of light that were flashing, blinking in and out of existence so rapidly that they gave the illusion of being solid. So imagine if you're watching the propeller of a plane spin, or the propeller of a fan. You got 3 individual blades, and while it's moving slowly, you can see the 3 blades. But if it speeds up enough and it hits a certain speed, you lose sight of the 3 blades, and all you see is a solid circle, because every space in between those blades is being hit so quickly. According to physicists, that's literally what we are. We are light. We are beings of light that have mistaken ourselves for this solid being that you feel pain with every day and that you suffer with every day through these bodies. But we're actually made of light. And I hear that, and then I go back to my Catholic upbringing, and I realize